all over the world you have stories of sometimes humans, sometimes animals being sacrificed to take the load of all the sins of the people into them, and then you either drive the scapegoat out or you crucify. There's one tribe somewhere that crucifies monkeys as a way of getting rid of sins. I'm not an anthropologist. I don't have very illuminating things to say about it. I do know that there's evidence from recent times of myths growing up astonishingly quickly. I've got a chapter in the God Delusion about the cargo cults of the South Pacific, where just since the 1940s, the myth of John Frum, the legend of John Frum. John Frum, nobody quite knows whether John Frum even existed, but he probably was something like an American airman in the Second World War. He's now become mythologized, and they're waiting for the second coming of John Frum. It's a very Christ-like myth. The legend of Elvis Presley coming back, Princess Diana. There are also extremely rapidly real events can get translated into myths, and give it 2,000 years, and goodness knows what the myth of Elvis Presley or Princess Diana, or indeed John Frum, might look like. David Attenborough has a wonderful account of visiting one of the islands in the South Pacific and talking to the cult leader of the John Frum cult. And he pointed out, David Attenborough pointed out to the cult leader, whose name was Sam, look, Sam, you've been waiting 30 years, and John Frum still hasn't come back. They build runways in the jungle for aeroplanes to bring John Frum back and things like that, and build wooden planes to sit on the runway to act as decoys. So David Attenborough said, you've been waiting 20 years, 30 years, and John Frum still hasn't come back. And Sam said, well, you've been waiting 2,000 years for your Messiah to come back. We can wait another whatever. Sorry, I haven't answered your question. Sorry.
Well, I just asked for speculation.
Yes,
That's
yes.
fine.
Hi, first of all, thanks for your talk, or where I'm from in Eighton, you say nice one, so nice one. Second of all, I agree with a lot of what you say, but don't you think, and by the way, when you said about Einstein's God, I think that was Spinoza's God as well.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. And the other thing is, you're up here now, and I'm sure you've heard this argument before, you're up here now on a stage, or you call it a pulpit or whatever, and there are, like, I agree with you, the man who quoted Kant, that there are certain false gods of science. So, for example, if you look at Isaac Newton, you needed someone to come along like a Riemann or a Einstein to disprove some of the false gods of science. Now, I believe that science has better gods than Christianity, but you must admit there are false gods in science.
Yes, I think I'd hesitate to say false gods. I mean, I think what's certainly true is that science advances by making mistakes and correcting them. And in the particular case of Newton and Einstein, you're no doubt referring to gravity, where Newton didn't really have a theory of gravity at all. What Newton had was the mathematical relationships that describe gravity, which he got with great accuracy, and the Newtonian laws of gravity are still used even for space rockets. So, but Newton had no theory of gravity. He just simply postulated that there's some unknown force of attraction.
From Hobbes, from Thomas Hobbes.
Is that right?
Yes.
I didn't know that. But then Einstein produced a real theory of gravity, which also made slightly different predictions at the margin, which turn out to be correct. And so we make advances, and it's of course open to possibility that Einstein will be wrong. Science does advance by correcting mistakes. I wouldn't call it false gods. I mean, there have been some extreme errors in science, and phlogiston theory and the Lamarckian theory of evolution and things like that. But science progresses by making mistakes, by falsifying hypotheses, putting forward a better hypothesis. The method of science of falsification, of putting forward hypotheses which you test, peer review, repeat testing, all these things are designed to minimize the chance of error, but error is still made. And in a way, scientists actually rather glory in it. They rather glory in detecting errors and correcting them and moving on. So I think it's a little unfair to use the phrase false gods. Anybody in the... Is there a...
Yes, there is.
Right,
Up
okay.
here. Do you want to go first? Can I go first?
All right.
Thank you. First of all, can I say good evening and a big welcome from everybody here to you for coming to Liverpool. So, thank you.
Thank you.
And my question is, do you think that we will be able to replicate the Big Bang Theory at CERN and find elusive Higgs boson and thus shed light on the parallel universes and string theory? And if we did, what kind of can of worms would that open? Thank you.
Well, as you know, I'm not a physicist, and
I know.
what my physicist friends tell me, I mean, I visited CERN twice, and it is a most moving experience. There is this gigantic ring. Is it 25 miles in circumference?
17, I think.
Okay. And you go down, deep down underground, and you see this tube which goes round for 17 miles. I think it is longer than 17. And there's a gigantic superstructure. It's one of the most ambitious projects ever undertaken by the human species. It's international, which I find very moving. You'll hear all languages spoken there. It's a magnificent tribute to human enterprise, human will, human cooperation. And if it works, what it may do is to bring to an end decades of hesitation, let's say, in theoretical physics. Theoretical physics has been brought up short by the lack of experimental data, by the lack of this prodigiously expensive piece of apparatus that people have long realized they needed in order to break through the impasse that remains in theoretical physics. And there was a project to build one in America which was scuttled. CERN is going ahead. CERN will, the new version of CERN will be probably coming on stream within a year. And it could be that a whole lot of new results will finally answer a great many outstanding questions in theoretical physics. It could be the most exciting time for a century, perhaps, to be in the subject of physics. As I say, it's not my subject, but if I were a young person today trying to decide what subject to choose to study at university, I must say I'm baffled by why more don't choose physics. I mean, physics is just going to enter upon a great flowering, a great blooming of new possibilities. Now, the question that raises the darker possibility of something dreadful happening, I don't think anything dreadful is going to happen because of CERN. I suppose you could say that something dreadful might happen ultimately because of new knowledge that comes. I don't think we're ever going to succeed in banning the search for new knowledge. What we have to do is to be very careful about how we turn that knowledge from pure science into technology.
Sorry, my question to you was, do you think they will succeed in CERN?
I told you that I don't have the knowledge to say that. I mean, I don't think even a physicist actually would know that. All they would do would place bets. And I've heard some pretty optimistic bets that yes, something very exciting is going to come out of CERN, and it's going to be very soon.
So do you think they'll find the Higgs boson?
I've tried to say I'm not a physicist.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.